Hey there, here's a quick note before we begin. You can support the podcast by downloading, sharing, or checking with my favorite hiking gear at justhike.com. Let's hit the trail. My name is Melanie, and we are on the Just Hike podcast. Today, we have our guest, Belinda Guerette. And Belinda is a Southern girl born in North Carolina, grew up mostly in South Carolina and in Florida. She and her husband, Carl, have been married for 37 years and have lived all around the world with his career in the Air Force and have retired near Austin, Texas. They have one daughter and a son who also lives in Texas. And Belinda started hiking the trails in 2013. And she also loves to read, knit, quilt, and hunt for ancestors. Welcome, Belinda, to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Tell me, what is this hunting for ancestors? What is that?
Well, that's just tracing my family history. My grandmother always talked about her family and her cousins and everybody whenever we went to visit. And so eventually I thought, I need to start writing this down. So I started tracing my family history. And that's when I would start. We went to the graveyards, Southern people go visit and put flowers. I'm sure everybody does, but we put flowers on the graveyard, the gravestones and stuff. And there was one ancestor out there that had a gravestone that said Brampton, England. And so that always interested me, somebody that was from somewhere else that we actually knew they were from somewhere else. So I just started looking into that and writing down all my family history.
I think a lot of people are, what is that called? Genealogy?
Yes.
I think that's a popular thing. I know some of my family members have traced back our genealogy quite a ways back, but then they lose track of it after a while, like after so many centuries or whatever with record keeping. So it's a good hobby to do, I think, to see where you're coming from. But
Yes.
I want to ask you, when did you first get into hiking and backpacking? What kind of stuff have you done?
Well, when I was young, we lived out in the country in South Carolina. And so I would walk in the woods and things. Just so I really loved walking in the trees and the woods and following trails and things. But then we moved to Denver, and there were just so many trails there and so much. The mountains were so beautiful. And so I started looking for trails, and I hiked there. And so I decided I'm going to hike all the 14ers, the 14,000 foot mountains out there. So I started training to do that and hiking trails, but then we moved to Texas. And so I started looking for places to hike in Texas. Somehow I remembered the Appalachian Trail, and that was my first goal, was to hike the Appalachian Trail.
Did you do that?
I haven't completed it or anything. I've just done some pieces of it. That was when I decided, okay, if I'm going to do something like that, I need to learn to backpack. So I started getting into the backpacking and the hiking.
So can you remember the first trail that really kind of hooked you? Was it one of the ones in Denver?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I mean, the Appalachian Trail was the one that really hooked me.
Nice.
The ones in Denver, there were some that were there. We lived in around Littleton, and there were some down there, like there was a Great Bear Trail, something like that. And I used to go down there a lot, and it went along a stream and by a castle. And so I really liked that one, but yeah.
So what section of the Appalachian Trail have you done? Is it like Georgia, or is there like a particular state that you've?
I know. We've done 3 sections. Friends and I go almost every summer and hike sections, but some of them were in North Carolina. One of them was in North Carolina, and 2 of them were in Virginia. So they were just
Nice.
like 50 and 75-mile sections. So a few days, like a week or something, a couple of weeks.
That's
the
awesome.
First one was a couple of weeks. So just enough.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just enough to kind of unplug from society and really immerse yourself on the trail. Now,
Right.
just out of curiosity, what do you think your like an average kind of backpacking day hike would be? Like how many miles? Like are you a 10 mile a day hiker or a 6 mile a day hiker or a 16-mile-a-day hiker?
I am I'm more like an 8 mile a day hiker. So,
Nice.
but
Yeah,
in the mountains, sometimes it's only like 6 or 8 miles, you
for
know.
sure.
But
Yeah.
then over in England, I was able to go, 10 miles. I was even able to go like almost 15 miles a couple of days because it was flatter and yeah. So
Right.
usually on flat land, like in Texas, it's probably 10 miles.
Nice. That's awesome. Tell me about your ancestry hike in England. What inspired you to do this hike? Was
Okay,
it
well,
researching at the graveyards? Is that what first started it?
that's yes, that started it. Well, back in the 90s, I started tracing my family history, and I had seen that gravestone of my ancestor that said that she was from Brampton, England. And so I started looking. I looked up the parish registers for Brampton, England, and all around, and I found a whole bunch of my ancestors listed on the parish registers, and they would say, they lived at the Hardhurst estate, or they lived at this farm or something. So I found places. And so I started looking them up on the map, and I found that they were really near Hadrian's Wall. And I'd never heard of Hadrian's Wall, but I looked it up, and it was this Roman wall that went all the way across England. And I just thought someday I'm going to go there. I realized that one of the houses was made from stones from Hadrian's Wall. So I just thought I'm going to go visit there one day. And then I got into hiking, and I just kind of put it aside. When I got into hiking and backpacking, I saw a few years ago that they had made the Hadrian's Wall path, which is a national trail now in England. And I
Oh,
thought, boy,
wow.
that's perfect. I could go and hike it and combine the love of, family history and the hiking that I like to do. And so I just planned one that put it on the bucket list, and decided I would do that someday. And then last year, my father came down with esophageal cancer, and he and my mother lived with us. And so he fought it for like a year, but we lost him last September. And that was just so big. And the whole year was so hard. And so, and his loss was so hard. And I just thought I need to find some peace. And so that's when I decided, okay, now I want to do this. I want to go on that big England hike that I had looked at. And my husband was so great. He was so supportive. He said, go do it. Go and make it your dream hike, whatever you need to do. So I got out, I bought a guidebook, and I got maps and the Far Out app, and got the trail for it on the Far Out app to keep up with exactly where I was. And I started planning. I had been home with Daddy for the year,
For
not
a
hiking
year, yeah.
hardly at all. And so I planned really short days. The first day was 5 miles, and the second day was 8 miles. So 10 miles was the most miles in a day that I had planned. Now I ended up hiking like almost 15 miles a couple of days just because I felt like it. You get stronger as you go along. And so I did end up combining a couple of days together here and there. But that was the inspiration for it. I planned it out and I started going.
If you're enjoying this episode of Just Hike, here's how you can help support the show. First, be sure to follow, download, and share this episode. It helps more adventurers like you and me discover the podcast and helps keep this journey going strong. And if you're gearing up for your next hike or just curious about my favorite outdoor gear, be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate page. I've listed all the items I actually use, from hiking shoes to trail snacks. You'll find them at justhike.com. Every purchase through the link helps support the podcast at no extra cost to you. Thanks again for being here with me on the trail. Let's go back to our show.
So I met people along the way. And the first day I flew into Edinburgh and I got a cold. I came down with a sore throat. And so the first day I didn't feel good. And the second day, by the end of the second day, I got to my hotel. I actually had a hotel booked that day, and I felt terrible. I was
Oh,
shaking. I was dizzy. I just felt horrible. And so
yikes.
I only told my sister. I didn't tell my mother or my husband, but I wanted somebody to know, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I was really glad that I had scheduled short days, And then so I started feeling better after that day. I got better and better. And then like when I got close to the middle of the trail, that's when I was getting to where the ancestor houses were. And so I took a 0 day, so I didn't hike any miles for one day. I took a taxi and I went up and saw the houses. And so the first house was really close to the Scotland border, and it had been used as protection from the border. England and Scotland, they weren't England and Scotland then, but the two sides, the Roman side and the other side, they had been fighting back and forth. And so they had a big, strong house that they could all be strong in to keep them from stealing the cattle and things like that. This was in the 1600s, I guess, that the border reavers would come down and steal livestock and destroy everything. It was built in the 1600s, and I was able to contact the owner of that house through Instagram. So he met me there and he showed me around all inside of it and showed me parts of it that had been built in the 1600s and part in the 1800s. And he said that my family, my little family ancestors, had lived there from the 17th century through the late 19th century. So
Wow.
that was
That,
really cool.
that
So
is
then,
so cool.
right. And then the second house that I went to, they didn't know I was coming, and I knocked on the door and they invited me in for tea, and they were so excited to hear about the house, to talk about the house, because they didn't know a lot about the house, and the history of the house. But I knew that was the house for sure, because it even had the Bowman house on a sign out in front
Oh,
of the house.
wow.
That was my ancestors that lived there. That was the one that from the gravestone that I had
Right.
seen when I was little. And so that was really neat that I saw that. And the third house was right along the trail. And so I got back the next day, I got back on the trail and I just walked to it, and I came to the road where it was, and I had to hike down this 1 mile long steep hill to
Oh,
get to that house. And I hoped that they weren't going to shoot me, but they
yeah.
didn't. I told them when I got there, thank goodness there was a really nice man that lived there. And I told him, I said, I'm from Texas, and we don't walk down long strange roads. But that was the house that was built from stones from Hadrian's Wall. And so it was really neat that it was listed on an archaeological list. So if there were any changes that needed to be made, remodeling kind of things, they had to get approval
Right.
to do
Yes.
that, because it was
Yeah.
a historical,
Wow.
that historical value. So that was really neat. So I took pictures of all of the houses, and then I got back on the trail, and then I had all the best of Hadrian's Wall in front of me. So I just hiked, oh my goodness, and it was just beautiful. The wall was amazing. It had all gone so perfectly, and there were it's this huge Roman wall, and it just goes on for miles and miles, and there's mile castles along it and turrets along it and pieces of towers and ancient Roman bridges. And it used to be like 10 feet high, but now most of it's 4 feet high or along your ankles, or at the beginning and the end, there's nothing at all. It's all been taken to build houses. Who would do
Oh,
such a
wow. That's
thing?
really interesting.
Right.
So
So
how long is that trail? Because you said it's a national trail now, is that right?
yes,
And
it's a
it's called
national trail.
and it's called
Hadrian's Wall.
Hadrian's Wall. Okay.
Yes, Hadrian's Wall path. And it's 84 miles long officially. And it doesn't go, it starts at at Bonus-on-Solway on the water, but then on the west side, I shouldn't say it starts there, but one end of it's that way. Half the people walk it one direction and half, it goes both ways. But on the other end, on the east end, it's about 5 miles from the coast. It hits the River Tyne, and then it stops there. So there's like another 5 miles before you get to the coast, but it almost goes all the way across England. So it's 84 miles, but the wall, there's there's not but maybe 10 miles of the wall intact still.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's
yeah.
really interesting. And how long did it take you to do, you did the entire length of the wall? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
And how long did it take you, minus your travel days to and from and all that? How many days were you actually on the trail?
I was actually hiking for 12 days,
12
which is
days.
insanely long. But I'm just like, I looked at it like it's like tying your shoe. After you've done it, nobody asks how long it took you to do it, you know?
Right, right. So how heavy was your pack?
Well, my pack was about 30 pounds with food and water, but I didn't, because when I got sick, I called a luggage place. Like most people that hike that trail, they use a luggage haul place to carry their bags from place to place. So I called the place and I said, "Can you please come pick my pack up and take it to my next campsite?" And they said, yes, they were wonderful to do that. And then they said, "Well, how long are you going to need this for?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe a couple or 3 days." But after the third day, I thought, this is the best thing ever. I can just walk and carry my snacks and my water and a raincoat and go. And so the rest of the trail, I had the luggage. So I basically slack packed it. And in the olden days, I wouldn't have done that. But now I'm like, I just want to enjoy my hike, you know? So
That,
I made it great. And it was only like 10 pounds a day to carry it. Right.
wow, that's neat. So how did you figure out where to stay each night? So do you book that ahead of time? Do you book some of them ahead of time, or are there campsites? Like what does that look like?
I did. The guidebook is very good about that. It'll tell
Okay.
you tent sites and bunk houses and hotels and B&Bs. You know, it recommends ones and gives the phone numbers and the prices and all of that. So I set it up so that I would tent camp, and then every couple of days I would stay in a bunk house, or if they didn't have a bunk house, I'd stay in
Hotel or something.
yeah,
Nice.
so that's what I did. And there was only one day that it was going to reach freezing, and I was way up high, and I thought, I don't want to stay in my tent tonight. And so
Yeah.
I called a B&B, and luckily I was able to get a B&B for that night.
Oh, that's so cool. So where can people find the guidebook? Did you just get it off of Amazon or somewhere?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
they're different ones. So yes, yeah, I had one. I think mine was the Trailblazer one. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Very neat. I'm gonna look that one up, and I'll make sure I'll put a link in the show notes
Oh, okay.
for
That's
for that book, for that
Yep.
guidebook, because
Yeah,
I think
it
that'll
was
be
one.
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, unmarked place. You can see a picture of it, and yeah, and it has all the information, pubs to go to that they recommend, and yeah, everything. So,
What does being outdoors do for you personally? Like, why would you choose to do a trip like that with a backpack versus renting a car and driving?
oh, the exercise. I just love. I like I like walking. I like, feeling the the air blowing through my hair, and I like, you know, feeling my muscles working and being outside. I don't like, if I'm going to exercise, I don't want to be inside on a treadmill, or so I love my bicycle and I love walking outside. I don't like sitting around camp. I don't like sitting there. I like moving. So if I can get there by walking rather than driving, then I would rather do that.
That's awesome. That's such a great answer. What are your go-to items in your backpack? Do you carry any sort of creature comforts with you?
It's snacks. There's my creature comfort.
Snacks.
That's one of the things that's so wonderful about hiking, is that you can eat snacks that you can't eat, peanut butter M&Ms and gummy bears and things like that. So snacks and water. Water is like my fear, and so I brought too much water. I'm trying to get better about not carrying so much water.
How much water do you typically carry, or what's your goal for carrying water? Like, do you carry, I know some people carry like 3 liters of water, and that's like 6 pounds.
No, I'm trying to get down to like a liter and a half or 2 liters, unless I know I'm going a really long stretch. So if I'm going 5 miles, I think about a liter and a half for, for that much. And
Yeah.
usually I don't even
Yeah.
end up touching my half liter, but that's
Right.
like my emergency half liter, so.
Oh, for sure. I think you need some sort of backup or some sort of reserve by the time you arrive at your next water source, right? Because you don't want to be completely dry.
Right,
Right.
exactly. And as far as creature comforts, I just am trying to get my backpack lighter and lighter. So I try not to carry anything luxury. I don't carry a chair to sit on because it's just getting, as I'm getting older, that backpack just seems to be getting heavier and heavier. And
Right.
my
Yeah.
hips don't.
So, how do you prepare mentally or emotionally for a solo or long distance hike? So, first of all, did you do this hike solo? You were solo. So, how do you prepare for being solo on a trip like that? Because you were on the trail for 12 days and you were knocking on strangers' doors
Right.
and so tell me about that.
Well, I just went out one night and slept solo around here, around Lake Georgetown is near us. And so I backpacked. It's like 30 miles around it. So I just hiked in and spent the night by myself to make sure that I felt safe to sleep by myself. I mean, I backpacked with friends and everything, but I just spent one night by myself and felt perfectly fine. So I thought I'm good to go. But I hike slowly. And so I didn't want to have to try to keep up with somebody else. And I didn't want somebody to be saying, no, don't really want to go visit that ancestor's house. Let's skip
Right.
that. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to be able to go everywhere that I wanted to go and as slow or as fast as I wanted to go. And I didn't feel, I mean, that England, it was so safe. I mean, never felt unsafe at all. The closest I got to it was at the end, when I got to Newcastle on Tyne. You're in the city then. And so I didn't tent camp there. I made sure I had a hotel there. So I didn't, because I didn't know.
The such an empowering trip to be able to go and do the things and so much self-care there in realizing that you wanted to be in control and you wanted to not have that commitment of other people saying, no, I don't want to go to this one. I want to go to this one. Because sometimes group trips can get a little
Right.
crazy with everybody wanting to do different things or different suggestions. And
Right.
it's,
And I love
yeah,
hiking with my friends. I mean,
yes,
every other trip I've always gone with them, and I like it that way. I like the social, and I like, having somebody else to share the planning and all of that. I like that. But just for this one, because of the kind of hike that it was, I wanted to do this one by myself.
right.
I mean, I like to go on day hikes by myself and stuff, but usually for a big backpacking trip, I would probably rather go with friends, but just especially for this one, this was special and personal for me.
You mentioned Georgetown, and I think you were talking about the Goodwater Loop, the one that
That's,
goes around. Yeah, I've been on that one a couple of times,
oh
and
yeah,
it's such a great trail. And
yes,
you said is it a 30-mile loop?
it is
Yeah,
about 26 miles,
20,
something like that.
26, something like that. Actually, I first did that hike with the Cure Search for Children's Cancer
Oh
Research.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, they'll do that. It's like a 1 day challenge kind of thing to go around Lake Georgetown and do the Goodwater Loop. And it was a lot of fun, and it's such a beautiful trail. And I love the fact that you can primitive camp there. You can just show
right,
up and go camp overnight. There are places where you can book or reserve a site, but then there's also primitive sites where you don't have to book. You can just show up and go campsite to
right.
campsite or
Yeah.
primitive camp.
Yes, my friends and I did that, and we did it in 3 days. So
Yeah,
we did about 10 miles each day, and then we camp and stuff.
that loop is a great beginner's loop. Like for someone who's learning to backpack and wants to get into kind of introducing themselves to an overnight backpacking trip, I think the
Yes.
Goodwater Loop is a great place to do that. And it's in such a safe environment because you're not totally in the wilderness,
Right.
right? You're surrounded by basically neighborhoods and subdivisions, but you
Bailout
still,
points.
yeah, yes, that's the right word. There's bailout points where you can get to safety pretty quickly. So it's a safe environment to start this journey. I think that's
Right.
great. What advice would you give to someone in their 50s or 60s who wants to start backpacking?
Well, I think you just start walking and then try to increase your distance as you go and increase your steepness, walk up some hills when you can. And then if you're going to backpack, go and do shakedown hikes. My friends and I looked up the state parks in Texas, and we would go and have an overnight or a 2-night backpacking trip to test out your gear and make sure you know how to work your stove and set up your tent and all that kind of stuff. Do that before you go on a big one. But yeah, just practice.
How did you find friends who want to backpack? My very first kind of hiking, backpacking adventure that I ended up going to Kilimanjaro and I did a solo trip. I hired a guide. You have to hire a local guide to take you onto the mountain because it's a national park and it's regulated. But I ended up going by myself and I kept on asking people, but I didn't have this network of people
Right.
who wanted to do an adventure like that. So I'm curious, how did you find friends who wanted to backpack?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, I went to church with a friend, and she posted a picture on her Facebook one time of her with a backpack. And she and
Oh,
her sister that lived up near the Dallas area, they were going to go do a section of the Appalachian Trail. And I had just, thought, okay, I want to do the Appalachian Trail. And I thought, okay, this is meant to be. So I contacted my friend at church and said, can I go with you? And they said, yeah, sure.
oh,
And we've just been backpacking ever since. Sometimes their cousin comes along with us, but we're just like a little trail family. I'm their honorary sister. So
oh,
yeah.
that's so awesome. So if someone wants to get into backpacking or hiking, just keeping an eye on social media and,
Yes.
if someone's posting something about, with a picture of a backpack or if they're going out in nature,
Right.
just kind of saying, hey, I want to do that. How do I get started?
Right. There's so
Yeah,
many, there's so many Facebook groups for each area that
there
if you
is.
just join them and then communicate for a little while and get to know those people, then hopefully they'll go somewhere that you want to go where you can meet them.
I have a couple more questions for you. Have you ever felt intimidated by the through hiking culture or younger backpackers?
No,
Have you ever had the feeling it's like,
yeah.
I'm too old to do this?
No, that
Good.
that I mean that's just my personality. But no, I'm not. I everybody is so nice out there. Hikers are just nice people. They all help you. And I mean, if anything, if they ever make me feel different, it's because I've got hiking poles and they're like, "Do you need some help getting across this stream?" So they're really nice and helpful. But if even if I ever ran across anybody that wasn't nice or treated me like an old lady, I have my story and they have their story and they don't know my story. So, everybody's different.
I feel that backpackers, like you said, are just generally nicer people, and you're all out there on the trail
Right?
together.
Yes.
And you're all battling the same thing, whether you're going up a hill and you're huffing and puffing, or you're trying to cross a stream, or you're just trying to find a place to sleep for the night.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Everybody can fall. Everybody can have an accident. We got to just all help each other out. And that's the way it seems to be out there. So, yeah.
Do you have like a bucket list hike or like another bucket list hike in your views? Where do you want to go?
Well, I still like to do parts of the Appalachian Trail, and my sister Christy lives near is in Virginia, near the Appalachian Trail. So there's always pieces, I try to go and connect little pieces of that. But there's a trail, the Mountains to Sea Trail in North Carolina, that goes all the way across North Carolina, and I think it's almost 2,000 miles. And I would love to do some of that because that one seems to be more like town to town kind of. It's set up to be more town friendly. And the older I get, the more I like that I can get to a town,
Right.
not just be out in the middle of nowhere like on the Appalachian Trail.
Nice. Do you journal or document your hikes in any way?
I try to. I don't do as well as I would like to, but I do. I try to write down at the end of every day how many miles I did from where to where and special things that I saw and everything that day.
We're going to play a fun trail game.
Okay.
You ready? All
Ready.
right. And then we'll wrap up after the trail game. So it's called This or That.
Okay.
First one, tent or hammock?
Tent. Absolutely. I love my little fort. Yeah.
I love it. Like a little cave.
Yes.
All right. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Freeze-dried meals or trail charcuterie?
Freeze-dried meals.
Do you have a favorite freeze-dried meal? Biscuits and gravy. Nice. Do you prefer trail solitude or campfire community?
I prefer trail solitude. Community is fun, but I like the peace of being by myself.
Do you prefer a long uphill climb or a steep downhill?
A long uphill climb. My knees don't like those downhills, and it makes me feel powerful to be
going uphill. Blisters or bug bites?
Blisters. I'd rather have a blister than a bug bite. I feel like I can cover up a blister enough that I can't feel it, but those bug bites go on forever. I haven't had bad blisters, so.
Do you have like a favorite pair of hiking boots or shoes? Like what brand do you like? And then what about socks? So boots and socks. What are your go-tos?
Well, I wear toe liner socks and I wear the darn tough wool socks on the outside of those. And the boots are a never-ending nightmare because my feet are terrible. I just need new feet, but they're so wide, and I have like a Morton's Neuroma, which makes them feel like they're even wider. So I just have to keep getting wider and wider shoes. So I really loved my Merrell shoes, my Merrell Moab shoes, until they weren't wide enough, even though they're really wide. And so now I have some kind of special ortho shoes that are really wide and they're good, but they're not a name brand hiking kind of shoe. So
gotcha. Okay. With investigating and finding what might be best for your feet rather than giving up and not doing it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No,
because some people will give up. They'll have problems with their shoes or problems with their footwear, and then they'll say, well, maybe this just isn't for me. But no. I'm glad you're pushing through.
Right. Yeah. You got to be tough when you're a hiker.
You do. Yeah. You gotta just figure it out. And sometimes you just have to tough it out. What is your favorite trail snack? Do you prefer peanut butter or jerky?
Oh, peanut butter or jerky? Peanut butter for sure. Jerky, I just don't like jerky. So no. I don't know. I haven't, the only jerky I found that I like is bacon jerky.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. I don't know if I've had bacon jerky, but that sounds good.
Yes, it is. Bacon anything is good.
It's right? Like that saltiness. Like
it would be, it would even be good with the peanut butter, right?
Yes, peanut butter and bacon sandwich.
Right, yeah.
You can eat anything on the hiking trail.
Exactly.
Do you prefer hiking in the rain or hiking in the heat?
Hiking in the heat. I'm from the South and I'm okay with the heat, but the rain, gosh, that just, messes everything up.
It can, for sure. Yeah. Now, so that brings me to the trail in England, or the Hadrian Trail. Did you get any rain? Was it rainy when you were there?
Not a drop. my tent was old and I had resealed it. You buy the spray that you can seal it and everything. So I sealed it and I checked it with my hose and everything, and it seemed to be good, but I know I'm on the last leg with it. I didn't have a single drop of rain. I mean, I had some dew, but yeah, nothing.
Oh,
Carried my rain jacket in my pack every day, my day pack, because I thought if I leave it in my backpack, it'll rain.
you're better off to pack it and not need it.
Right, exactly. The whole hike was just like a huge blessing. I mean, it was exactly what I needed at the time. I needed to find peace after everything. And it was just amazing. The people were amazing, the views, the weather. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's so cool. Thank you so much, Belinda. I appreciate you coming on to the Just Hike podcast with me. Is there anything else that you want to add or let our viewers know in regards to being a female on the trails or being a more mature hiker? Because I know we're all getting up there, and I hate saying that word, but we are.
I know. Well, it's just that you have to realize that you might have to lower your expectations, but you can still do what you want to do. You just lower the expectations, but you don't quit. You still do the hard things and you still challenge yourself. You just have to be more careful about it. We'll enjoy ourselves out there.
Yeah, very awesome. Well, thank you once again. I appreciate you coming on and agreeing to be a guest with me. And it's been really fun talking with you and learning about that special trail that you did. That's so interesting. And like I said, I will include a link to the guidebook in the show notes.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. It was nice talking to you too. Bye-bye.
If you're enjoying this episode of Just Hike, here's how you can help support the show. First, be sure to follow, download, and share this episode. It helps more adventurers like you and me discover the podcast and helps keep this journey going strong. And if you're gearing up for your next hike or just curious about my favorite outdoor gear, be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate page. I've listed all the items I actually use, from hiking shoes to trail snacks. You'll find them at justhike.com. Every purchase through the link helps support the podcast at no extra cost to you. Thanks again for being here with me on the trail.